Still the ultimate morning show here on Raypower 100.5 FM. My name is Dima. In case you're just tuning in, good morning to you. And for those of us who are watching right now on YouTube, Raypower Abuja, good morning to you too once again. Let's get into the papers this morning and see what the dailies are saying. We have quite a number of them with us, and we'll be starting off with the Whistler newspaper this morning. Big story here says Abia outshines 35 states in citizen satisfaction, ranks third in governance report in governance, and this is according to a report. A writer to that story said leads nation in security, healthcare, affordability, business support rating. I mean, so many areas you would want to say: free education, debt reduction, fiscal reforms drive Abia's rise. Mm, free education, that one is very important. Well, the story is on page 15 of the Whistler newspaper this morning for you to check out. Scrap non technical courses. Federal government orders polytechnics. The story is on page 14. And on page 13, ISWAP Boko Haram clash in Borno State. Two other stories here. As the Nigerian Correctional Service removes prison boss, two officers over inmates TikTok live. It's quite an interesting story. We'll get to discuss that much later after checking out the papers. For this one from the Whistler is on page 3. And that's almost it from the Whistler newspaper. Let's go to check out the Nigerian pilot. And the big story is the running story on the Oshun account freezing. I was deeply embarrassed. This is coming from the president, Bola Tinubu. Declares, um, Tinubu declares, orders EFCC to vacate court order over freezing Oshun government's account, says timing of commission's action was inauspicious with Oshun Guba election only days away. Okay, insists impression shouldn't be given that government agencies are being used to interfere with election. Okay, and reiterates commitments to allow anti-corruption agencies to operate independently. Now that story is on page 8 from the Nigerian Pilot newspaper. Sad story here, very sad story. Three children found dead in Anambra native doctor's residence. Very sad story. The story is on page 7. All right, so other stories here. Police arrest two. Yet again, another sad story for exhuming corpse from Uyo Cemetery. That story is on page 9. So more stories here. The Police Service Commission transfers 50,000 newly recruited constables to police force for training. Okay, the story in detail you can read on page 6. And for the Oshun gubernatorial election still, ICPC vows to crack down on vote trading. That's on page 9. TVET probe, Reps Committee gives Education Minister August 18th to submit relevant documents. On page 8, you can read that in detail. And aviation funding matter, NAMA seeks 56% share of statutory charges. That's on page 5. And FCTA to crack down on illegal motor parks as new bus terminals take off. The story is on page 7. But let's move on from the Nigerian pilot now to the Observer Times newspaper. Southeast youth rethink military careers over the new pay, demands level playing field and end to NDA nepotism. Experts urge targeted outreach to overcome historical war biases. That's on page 1. ICPC uncovers two more fake agencies in the PFIPC probe. We'll get to check that later. The story is on page 3. And ADC says to Tinubu, your EFCC order exposed anti-graft agencies' lack of. Okay, the story you can read on page 4. Meanwhile, Tinubu intervenes, orders EFCC to release Osun State account. And back to the FCT here. FCT Water Board restores supply to Use Wuye Maitama. You know that Use has been out of water for like 3 weeks, and the cry has been quite high. So kudos to that one, and thank God that that has been sorted out. Federal government approves recruitment of 3,252 PTA teachers into civil service. Wow. Wow. So good news. The story is on page 7 for the Observer's Times. We'll check it out a little bit more later if time permits. Let's go on to the Daily Independent newspaper. Okay, for the Oshun's government account freeze, there is other stories here. Tinubu's EFCC directive sparks opposition backlash. So, reaction to the directive from the president there. Opposition says it shows anti-graft agency not independent, challenges Tinubu to identify court order freezing the account, and task president on same directive to ICPC to free El Rufai. Okay, we'll check that story much later. That is on page 29 for the read if you want to check it out on the Daily Independent today. Dangote overtakes US, becomes Europe's #1 jet fuel supplier from Nigeria. Good. Page 7, read that. Senate probes 2.36 trillion naira fuel subsidy spend, threatens the AUGF with arrest on page 7. And Shetima, the vice president, embarks on first annual leave since assuming office. That is what the story has here on page 6 of the Daily Independent. Meanwhile, IGP urges officers to shape debate on state police. Page 7, read there. And we have the 5% ticket sale charge. NCAA, NAMA, AAAU locked in sharing formula role. And as the airline operators of Nigeria says, 5% of TSC has outlived its usefulness. This opens on the front page and continues on page for the Daily Independent on page 6. Okay, we'll get to check it a little bit later as well. Osun sues EFCC for 2 billion naira over frozen state accounts. Opens on the front page here and continues on page 6. Okay, let's leave the Daily Independent to other stories. Here we have the New Telegraph um, paper this morning. All right. PFIPC probe, ICPC submits interim report, recommend Adeyemi's prosecution. And that story you can read on pages 2 and 7 for the New Telegraph today. TVET inquiry, reps threaten education minister with sanction. Read this one on pages 4, 5, and 27 of the New Telegraph. 2026 Electoral Act designed, perfected before it was taken to NAS. This is an allegation coming from Buba Galadima, and that's on page 7. Ex-DSS officer arraigned over IPOB membership, terrorism sponsorship. Page 4, read there. Find out who and find out details on that. Pan-African columnists urge South Africa to address xenophobic issues and to foster unity. Page 2, read there. And fuel subsidy gulped 1.16 trillion naira in 2025, says RMAFC. That's on page 2. All right, to a little bit of study here from the New Telegraph before we move on to other stories. Hidden body fat may be silently damaging men's fertility, according to a report. Says hidden body fat may be silently damaging men's fertility. That's the study from the New Telegraph. You might want to read that, and it is on page 27 of the paper today. Let's go on to the GWGNG newspaper. Among other stories already taken, we have suspense over Ned Nwoko as Delta North APC leaders meet. The story is on page 2. I think we might touch that a little bit as well. And the sad story here, ex-finance minister Kemi Adeosun loses husband. The story is on page 5. And in Osun State, Uzodinma rejects Davido's plea. That's on page 4. And that's about it from the GWGNG. We move on to other stories. We'll be checking at the Disclosure News this morning. Okay, among other stories already taken, ICPC uncovers 2 more fake agencies operated by arrested PFIPC boss, says his collaborators are in the SGF, the HOSF, the AGF, the budget offices. Also says fake PFIPC invaded the PEAC. The story in detail is on page 2 of the Disclosure News today. One that concerns the FCT Abuja earth tremor. It says Alake calls for calm, directs agencies to report updates. Page 5, read there. We might get to check that later. I mean, that's in Abuja. FCTA orders transport operators into bus terminals, threatens mass impoundment. Page 10, read. And fuel pricing. Federal government gives stakeholders 21 days to submit proposals over anti-competitive prices in energy sector. That's on page 13. Meanwhile, Glow leads internet growth figures in Nigeria for May. Glow Network. Correct, that's on page 13. Correctional Service removes prison chief, two officers over death row inmates, viral TikTok. Page 11, read. Okay, a little bit of business story here, and then we go into some of the papers. Okay, so to the business story coming from the Business NG, okay, says 1 week after deadline, STI, Regency Alliance, Guinea, Starco, African Alliance, all of them struggle to complete the recapitalization. That's on page 2. And 145 billion naira safe school fund. Why attacks persist despite massive investment? Want to find out why? Check page 2 of the Business NG today. SEC moves to recover unclaimed funds, assures beneficiaries access to inherited investment. Page 2, read there. And DSS arraigns Amazon over alleged 800 million naira SunTrust Bank server hack. That's on page 2 as well. And that's about it from the Business NG. Let's go through the papers that we checked out this morning. We checked out the Business NG, that of the Disclosure News, the GWGNG, New Telegraph newspaper, Daily Independent, Observer's Times, Nigerian Pilot, and the Whistler newspaper. Okay, there are lots of quite interesting stories that actually took the center stage as far as this, the front page of all these newspapers are concerned today. But let's deal with that has to do with Abuja first of all. If you are in Abuja early this week, I don't know whether you experienced any kind of a shake, any kind of earth tremor in Abuja. If you didn't, well, it's not, you are not really to be blamed if you didn't get that, because it's not something we easily anticipated. I mean, Nigeria as it stands is not situated along that major tectonic plate boundaries, where you have all this earthquake and experiencing things like that. But as far as FCT, Kaduna, and Oyo State are concerned, there is this report about minor fault lines and interplate stress that runs through those parts, which means you can experience some of these shakes. Abuja, I think around the 4th of August, today is 7th, 4th August, there was a report about things like that, which is why you're seeing in the paper that, there are the minister Dele Alake is also saying no cause for alarm. I have asked the agencies to give me updates. Please don't worry about it. So that shake is really happening. And according to some reports, they kept saying, some of them keep saying, maybe it's because of the rock shifting. We have rock in the FCT, so maybe there is a shift, or maybe the water itself as well is, the water table shifting. These are one of the things that might actually cause that kind of a shake in the FCT. One of the major areas that is usually mentioned that gets this kind of shake is around Pape side. You won't fault it. I mean, that side, you also have rock around that area, Metama, Katampe, Otako, all those areas. And in recent years, we've had that. Now, the most recent is now the one reported on the 4th of August. So it's been quite interesting seeing such a story. And knowing that immediately that happened, the authorities also swung into action, and they are giving assurance that, nothing might really happen. So let's calm down a little bit on that. So that is good news. And still in Abuja and development in Abuja. So there are lots of terminals that has been built in Abuja, which we know a few terminals here and there have been built in Abuja. And now we are seeing the FCT administration really taking action, saying every motorist has got to move into this bus stop. Any other thing outside that is illegal. So if you're a motorist, this is really going to affect you. and you are expected to pay very good attention to that, because I guess that crackdown and that enforcement is going to start any moment. That is very interesting. But let's leave Abuja to Ogun State, to a development in Ogun State, in the prison in Ogun State. So there is this particular inmate who is there for life sentence. Um, Let me remember the hold on, Elijah Oyebode, and the prison is at Ibara Medium Correctional uh, Custodial Center in Abeokuta, Ogun State. So the inmates went live on TikTok while inside the cell. So that is what you're seeing in the paper about the prison boss and two officers being sacked. The inmate went live and was really giving people information on what it feels like in the prison. Really interacting, doing other social media matters. And the big question is, why did that happen? Which was why these three persons were asked to go, at least to create room for proper search. Now, that raises another huge question. Among so many things that have been named as contraband in correctional services, include cell phone, because of the fear that if you have your cell phone in those areas, one could use it to run operations or even contact people or plan escape with the cell phone. So how come an inmate has a cell phone fully charged, or that is charged, that has data? In fact, you operate everything you do while in the correctional center, and this is somebody who is serving time for murder in that area. Well, he has been moved to an isolated center, according to the report. But this is a huge question about management in the correctional service. What is really going on in that area, and what maybe a wake up call, maybe a reason to really pay serious attention to matters like this. It shouldn't be going on. It shouldn't be what we should be experiencing as per somebody who is in a place to be corrected. Correctional service, this is what you need to do. Why are we having issues like that? So that is the matter from Ogun State, and it's been really taking a whole lot when people talk about it. If you go on social media platform, you'll be able to see that is, if the one thing that will greet you there isn't about this whole P Square saga and the story that is going on there on social media, but that is another story that is really taking a center stage on social media recently. Well, let's move on to other stories here. Let's go a little bit to the airline, the story about the 5 ticket sale charges. Now, we all know that when someone buys ticket for a flight, there is this 5% charges that is usually, the airlines usually add that 5% charge, and that charge is supposed to go to those who are maintaining the airline, those who are in accident management, those who are in the weather, those who, all of the areas are supposed to share that. Now, the sharing formula is beginning to cause a whole lot of issue around around the various sectors. I'm going to Let me go through the papers here to understand, to tell you the percentage in actual fact what's going on there. Okay, the papers here say for years the Nigerian Civil Service Aviation Authority, that is the NCAA, which is the chief regulator, has always received the lion's share of the pool. That is, they get roughly 56 to 58%, while NAMA, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, which manages the radars, the air traffic control towers, and navigation system, they receive 22 to 23%. Then the remaining portion is split among other aviation entities like the NIMET, who check the weather, the NSIB, who check the accident investigation, the NCAT, that are the aviation training. Now, NAMA now went to, that is NAMA, the one who received the 22 to 23%, now went before the House of Reps to demand a total reversal of the formula, requesting that its allocation be raised to 56%. The proposal immediately met fierce resistance from NCAA leadership and aviation labors. Now, even if you check it, if NAMA is getting 56% and NCAA is also getting 56%, what is left for NSIB, NCAT, and NIMET? I mean, that is the controversy that is going on with that matter, as well as the one that earlier happened during the week, and I think last week as well, about the ultimatum given that this money is not even being remitted in the first place, and workers might end up, picketing those airlines that are not remitting the funds, and it might be an issue. So I think you need to also ask questions very well before you book and before you travel, to avoid booking based on what might cause an issue. But I think that the government is probably doing something about the matter to find a lasting solution to it. Before we go to the proceedings in National Assembly and some other issues there, let's just talk a little bit about this suspense over Ned Nwoko, that matter that we read with the GWG.NG newspaper. Okay, so the matter on that is, you know, the former Delta State Governor, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, is recently, it's been a little bit of a friction. There has been a bit of intense primary disputes. The meeting that they'll be having in Delta State today is really going to ask a bit of a question, because some people are saying that probably Senator Ned Nwoko is not really doing what we really stand for, what we expect and want him to do as a senator. Maybe this is the issue. Are we really going to, during this primaries, what are we really thinking of? How are we going to elect it? So that's why the report is having that, okay, so this is the tension that is growing. And after the outcome of the meeting, we'll really know whether that party and the entire lot will stand and still continue to support Ned Nwoko to continue to be the senator representing the Delta North at the end of the day. ICPC uncovers 2 additional fake agencies while still dealing with the matter for the alleged PFIPC boss. All right, that is the FCT Investment Promotion Council, FIPA, and the Foreign Investment Promotion Agency and Public-Private Partnership, FIPA PPP. Those are the 2 that he said in the course of also trying to investigate the matter. We have found out that this same man, Adeyemi, is running this additional 2 agencies as well, and it's really getting lots of reaction following the matter. A lot of people are watching. Some civil rights groups are, following up on the matter, paying attention. Some bodies are also trying to make sure that at the end of the day, the the due course is followed, and those who are guilty should be the ones that should, be prosecuted. But recommendations keep coming up here and there about the prosecution, and some are saying, you know what, go ahead with it. Now, still talking about this matter, some proceedings and reports, we have that of the EFCC and the Osun State government, where just as the president is, okay, you already know the story about, I think that was in the paper earlier, maybe I didn't even take it with some of the other stories, but I'm trying to beat time here. There are some, in Osun State, the EFCC says they are investigating a particular amount of money, and they want to make sure it doesn't enter into that Osun statutory account. I think 11 billion naira now that they are investigating, and for that reason, they froze the account. But the Osun State government immediately took the matter to court to say, why exactly with the Osun State governor, the Osun State accountant general, and another went to court to, to sue EFCC chairman and the bank in question, which is the First Bank of Nigeria, that why exactly would you freeze an account and put a post no debit order on the account without a court order from, a court of competent jurisdiction? Why would you have something like that on us? I mean, it is a breach. Are you not acting out of your bounds here to be making such a directive? And why in the first place is the bank supposed to listen to your directive without an authorization from the court that you should freeze this account. So they took the matter to court and they sued EFCC for 2 billion naira damages, serving as a deterrent to any other person that will take such an action. But right as they were doing that, you also have the president saying, EFCC, you embarrass me. Why would you do something like this? How can you, vacate the order, vacate that order now? But for you to vacate an order, there has to be a court order. So you have reaction from people who are saying, sir, why are they vacating order when they didn't even have an order in the first place? Placing this kind of, taking this kind of action. It was something they saw fit in their own position and took action on that. So that matter is still ongoing, but for want of time, let's just wrap it up here. But we'll definitely get to talk some more about this matter, even as the stories and the reports continue to unfold. But we need to take you to the network studio now for the news on the hour, a female conversation, and the sports mix that will be coming your way. I mean, the fact that will be centered on sports that will be coming your way at 8:30. My name is Dima. Thank you so much for being a part of this.